when it comes to fancy equations, symbols that I've never really had to use in my life or whatever, like, I don't know, just these symbols in math that don't mean anything to me. So you're actually talking a foreign language to me when you talk in that way. Your minus, your plus, your times, your division. That's about it, and you know, equations, yeah, where you add a value to a letter and so on. Things like that. There's some things I get, but when it gets into physics, it all gets a bit complicated. Regardless of that, there was a show, Dr. Kroon, on intergalactic space travel at Steve McRae's channel. I just began to watch it, and he talks about bouncing a photon between perfect mirrors. And I thought, is it possible? I mean, this is my thinking, regardless of the math. Immediately, I think, is it possible to get a perfect mirror? Surely there's some energy loss or energy absorbed from the photon for a bounce back, because this is why your average mirror, you look in a mirror, it's not a perfect. If it was absolutely perfect, your sensory input would be fooled into thinking, wow, there is a perfect replica of me in that mirror, and I could walk through that if, there'd be that bit of your brain doing some confusion, and the critical analysis would have to get in the way of that and say, no, it's a mirror. Stop it, it's a mirror. So I went and looked it up. And physicists at MIT, and bear in mind I haven't seen all the video yet on this, and that interests me, the wormhole, or to have a faster and light speed, you'd have to not go through space and time, but warp space and time around you. All these different theories in physics, I think, are absolutely fascinating, and I think if there is an advanced race out there has done it, it's doing it. Just because ETs haven't made like official news and official contact doesn't mean that it's not going on. If I was an ET, I would look over the most dangerous areas. Therefore, I would look at military, missile launch silos and all that. Turns out, military witnesses are many, not few. There's many of them are witness to UFO, unusual craft. Now, just because I say UFO, people think it's extraterrestrial. It might be more local. Some intelligence has been here before we got to think about space travel, or think about our origins of existence, all these pondering questions. Regardless, that's a whole other subject matter that those military witnesses are going to be putting out on Exploratory Minds, what they claim, what they witnessed, just short snippets, who they associated with, and so on. As I did with an older project, I won't go too heavily onto that because there's so many other sub-subjects of that are clouded and foggy, because conspiracy nuts get on the bandwagon of UFO stuff. Anything that's a bit fringy, the nutters just ruin the subject matter by getting in the way, just shitting on the road and leaving their mess behind. We've seen a lot of people like that on YouTube of the past couple of years. That's, well, yeah, I mean, it's just phenomenal, the amount of fuckery that goes on. Accusations against people. Accusations against Steve. It was one of his videos. He was interviewing Dr. John Kroon So yeah, I looked it up, and there's a snippet that says conventional mirrors work in a very simple way. They block the passage of light, or sound, or water, or radio waves, and so they have no choice but to reflect. Of course, if it's blocked, it's going to bounce back away from the blockage. Of course, as you can imagine, the reflection is never perfect. There's some energy being absorbed. That's what I thought. But apparently, they created a perfect mirror. It just didn't seem logical to me that it was possible, but they've done it. Um, there's some energy being absorbed by the material or scattered in different directions on a conventional mirror. It's never perfect. For a human checking their hair or makeup, this lack of perfection doesn't really matter. But this is what I'm reading, but when you're talking about reflecting lasers down to hundredth miles of optic fiber or solar power installations, these tiny imperfections can cause a huge drop in efficiency. Marin, I just call him Marin. There's no way I'm going to be able to pronounce that. It's Soljac with a curve on top of the C. I don't know what that is. Talking about symbols earlier, math symbols. I haven't got a clue. I see Soljacic, maybe. Marin and the colleagues from MIT Photonics and Electromagnetics Group stumbled across this perfect mirror almost by accident. I was thinking the other day, it's fascinating how so many breakthroughs are just like, you have that aha moment. It's almost like it's always seemingly like you stumble across these things or it's an accident, and it really those accidents spurring on and form a leap in technology here and there. We can leap off that platform many accidents here and there. So let's read on. The team was studying the behavior of a photonic crystal. In this case, a silicon wafer with nano-patterned layer of silicon nitride on top. Now, I don't know all the details yet. This is why it's going on EM Network channel. It's just something to ponder. So silicon nitride on top that had holes drilled into it, forming a lattice. These holes are so small that they can accommodate a single light wave at most angles. Light was partially absorbed by the photonic crystal as they expected, so there is some absorption of energy there, but with a specific wavelength of red light at an angle of 35 degrees, the light was perfectly reflected. Every photon that was emitted by the red light source was perfectly bounced back at exactly the right angle with no absorption or scattering. That's fascinating. Thinking in physics, like at the this is way smaller than atomic scale. It's a Planck's distance, isn't it? Distance across a photon. You think there would be some loss of energy, some minus in it taken away when it bounces back, even if it's, you call it the red spectrum, the green, or whatever. So it still confuses me a little bit how that is even possible. Thinking in terms of just how energy works, because there's energy moving and hits something, bounces back and there's no energy loss at all. That's really quite something, I think. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. This phenomena, it says here, is new and unexpected. Well, yeah, I wouldn't expect it at all. Not really. Maybe there's some loss there that they have is so small that they haven't been able to detect it. Is that possible? It says unexpected. John von Neumann, one of history's most notable polymaths, theorized a similar phenomena in 1929. Of course, if there was even a tiny amount of loss, you bounce it back and then bounce it off another. There you go, two of these perfect mirrors next to each other. The photon bounces to one, loses a bit of energy, bounces back to the other, loses a bit, so there would be some degradation over time. But apparently that's not happening, I guess, that they would have to be able to detect that. So it'll be 100%, it just bounces back off. So there's a conservation of energy here as well, then, I would think. Infinite conservation of energy. Am I wrong? If it bounces back, if it can bounce between two perfect mirrors infinitely without degrading, then there's something to be considered here a big time. So, similar phenomena in 1929, but it had never been demonstrated experimentally. It's a very different way of confining light. So Marin says so that's what he says. It's a different way of confining light. A. Douglas Stone, a Yale professor who was involved in the work, that says that this is practical demonstration is, in quotes, very significant because it represents a new kind of mirror which, in principle, has perfect reflectivity. This is, I'm thinking in ways that this could be advancing digital storage as well. How small can you make your mirror? And you can store information with light then, I guess, in your computer. Instead of binary digits, you get the presence of a photon in one location and the absence. So there'd be, the presence would be 1 and the absence would be 0. Zeros and ones binary code, right? And all you need is light to store your data instead of electrical current through the chip. Obviously, you need electrical current to read the chips and all that, perhaps, or however it's done. This is, I mean, people have been talking about physically materials, Moore's law, where components have got smaller and smaller and more components fit on a smaller and smaller space, like this fractal-like geometry and the evolution of it. It's like thousands of components on one chip equals, and then you get millions and so on. Keeps going, but there's a threshold because of physical, and now the threshold goes beyond the physical into the wavelength and frequency. So in effect, Moore's law still continues then, but it is continuing then from a transition, a blend from physical to whatever this is. Controlling light, you control light, you control information. The in a computer system that reads photons instead of electrically on or electrically off. Yeah. You can tell, I do ponder a lot. I've pondered and thought about this a lot. And it's one of those things, I could be getting it entirely wrong, but could be too far above my head. But these are the things I come out with when I look at these things and think, what if? And shove a theory out there and have a look at consider a perspective. Because I feel like not enough of us, there's some brilliant people who are really intelligent, offer multiple perspectives on different things, and they create good discussion on that. But I don't think enough human beings on the planet really hear about new technologies and then think, how else can that be applied in a different perspective on its practical application and so on. So I'm going to read on a bit more. There's near perfect reflectivity, at least in red light. While there are almost undoubtedly practical applications for these perfect mirrors, the MIT team has currently focused on sussing out exactly what's going on. Yeah, that would be... And there's a lot of things like that as well. It's like science and physics discovers these things. And they say, here's the result, but we don't know why, the underlying cause of that result. But it is something that happens. So exactly what's going on. New phenomena, once they've understood and easily replicated, often lead to new and novel applications. In this case, the most obvious application is more powerful and efficient lasers. Of course. But concentrated solar power using mirrors to boil water, great, that's very... Yeah, because the more photons you get within a stream, you've got lasers or your wavelengths all synced up, right, all into one beam. And you keep doing that in a perfect reflective area, and you keep adding more and more energy, it's going to get hotter and hotter. So you can boil your water using light. Instead of a heating element, which takes huge amount of, this could be very efficient on saving energy. You might need something to electrically power a light, but it's a way more advanced than a heating element in an oven. Get the oven rings, things like that. That would be compared to the energy consumption. I don't know what the difference would be, but I think it would be a big difference. You're conserving and saving energy there. I'm going to put this on both the channels, actually, because it's more on point. Just to get my thought process out there. This will be on Exploratory Minds as well as EM Network. So only last week we wrote about DARPA, and I have a lot of not a lot, but a number of articles about DARPA. So this is piquing my interest even more anyway. DARPA talking about technologies of smart lenses, contact lenses, which the ultimate goal would be digital information laid over your visual view, and all these different things. Hollow core fiber optics, DARPA is looking into, which use photonic crystals to propagate the signal. Presumably, perfect mirrors can be used in these fibers to provide greater range and speed. Your internet speed. It's a You adapt this in fiber optics, adaptation of fiber optics. Different photonic crystals with different patterns of drilled holes should be able to reflect waves of other properties. So I guess what they mean would be, rather than just red light being perfectly reflective, you can also tweak it to blue, red, green, blue, primary colors or whichever, such as other and waves of other properties to such as acoustic, water, and radio. Well, yeah, why not? They're all frequency based. They're all wavelengths, right? So it's all vibration. And wouldn't a perfect mirror also be useful for making a invisibility cloak? Many years ago, and occasionally, I keep looking at it. DARPA have been working on the perfect cloaking technology for a long time. It's one of their main projects. I mean, back in 2013, I had an article based on theories of cloaking, using materials that would be advanced enough on the micro scale to have on the microscopic scale of tiny cameras interwoven into the fabric. And this was quite a brainstorm at the moment, but it didn't mean it was actually physically possible. But the fabric itself, then, it was almost like a flexible, wearable LCD screen, and depending on what the cameras are seeing, the screen could change to fit the environment. So, accounting for its curve relative to what it's receiving from the environment. It was a complicated thought process and gave me a headache. It's giving me a headache talking about it as well. And yeah, in that article there was a video about a person smashing a mobile screen versus a flexible LCD screen, and of course it's not being smashed, it's not brittle because the energy is dissipated via its flexibility. It's not going to rip or anything. So yeah, it's gone. That goes on a tangent, but you get the idea of when you hear something like this is possible. There's a whole range of technological advancements that could come from that if it was perfected, and if they really figured out what the hell's going on there. Yeah, I think I just blew my own mind. Thanks for watching. This is something I've just been pondering, having a look. I must have missed that show, so I'm gonna watch the rest of that right now after uploading this video. Thanks for watching. Peace. Bye. Take care. Do your due diligence. Wear a mask. Physically distance and all this. Get vaccinated. Don't run around saying, "Oh, it's all a hoax." If you are, you really need to pull your head out your ass. Aside from that, thanks. Bye.